Hey there. So we've got the new moon in Cancer coming up on the 5th of July. If you are ahead of the UK and Portugal, which is where I'm located, then most likely you've got the new moon heading to you on the 6th. For everyone else, it's on the 5th of July. This is the new moon in Cancer, around about 14 to 15 degrees in the sign of Cancer. And so there's a lot of themes that are coming up to be explored. The first thing that I would say is if you have anything from, say, 10 to 20 degrees in the sign of Cancer, this is going to be one of these new moons that seems to really kind of restart you in some way. Think in terms of the planet that it's touching. You know, for instance, over mine, it's Saturn, so I could have a new start in terms of my levels of discipline, or that I might be naturally starting to come into a period of refinement. But have a look at your own chart and see if you've got something around there. Alternatively, you might have something, say, around 12 to 18 degrees in the sign of Aries, Capricorn or Libra, so the squares and the opposition, and they will also be triggered by this Cancer new moon. If you have something of those degrees in, say, the water signs, so Scorpio and Pisces, then you might find that this is quite harmonious and quite an easy thing to manage. This feels like a nice, easy, natural time. So let's explore the new moon in Cancer right now. I'm going to do it in two parts. The first bit is to talk more about the actual planetary astrology, looking at the planets, their relationships to each other, and a little bit about how Cancer shows up in our chart. What does it represent? What are its qualities that want to be expressed during this time? And then in the second part, really talk about some of the key asteroids or points or anything kind of cosmic within our solar system or galaxy even. Sometimes it does go that far. Anything that's notable that seems to be vibing with the energy of this new moon in Cancer. So let's bring that up now. So like I said, it's on the 5th. It's right at the end of the 5th. If you're based in the UK, at 23:57, that's like just 3 minutes before midnight. I've put in some of the more notable aspects that are happening on that day or immediately after, because I always think what's leading into it really gives us a feel for how this new moon might be coded in terms of the energies. And we've got this Mars sextile Saturn, which I think is really useful. Both Mars and Saturn are in so-called negative or more receptive signs. Obviously Saturn's a long-term resident of Pisces right now, really wanting to stabilize everything that feels a bit unusual and a little bit spiritual, or maybe a little bit hard to define. And Mars in the sign of Taurus again is creating stability and taking action to create stability. So there's this lovely energy, almost like building blocks around the time of this new moon. It really feels like it's creating a building block it's almost like you're building a foundation of something, and you want to know that it's not going to let the water in. I really see that as Saturn in Pisces. It's really managing the emotions. It's really managing to keep anything that's too irrational out, anything that might be destabilizing. Saturn is really trying to work with those energies. And Mars in the sign of Earth is absolutely trying to create this, taking action to create some stability. So this to me is a building block. So you've got this building block energy of whatever the new moon in Cancer represents to you. Then we've got these two really quite frustrated signs. Now, later on, the following week, about 10 days later on the 15th of July, and this also feeds into the overall July forecast. So if you haven't listened to that already, you might find that useful. I do it on a sign by sign breakdown. But on the 15th, there is this big energy of Mars and Uranus, and you'll see them here. They're already in a conjunction. On the 15th, they're exactly in a conjunction. So wherever, you've got like 26 degrees in the sign of Uranus is a pretty big marker right now for really taking action and creating some change. But at the time of the new moon, or just leading into the time of the moon makes a semi-square to Mars and a semi-square to Uranus. Now, you might not know what a semi-square is. A square is one of these 90-degree angles. So you'll see those with these these kind of shortish red lines. We've got oppositions that are 180 degrees, squares which are half of an opposition, which are 90 degrees, and a semi-square is half of that again. So, 180 reduced down to 90, half it again, you get 45s. So the semi-squares are angles of 45 degrees. So it's more than a sign, and it's not two signs. That's equivalent to a sextile, but it's essentially a sign and a half, 45-degree angle. And you'll see here that the moon is approximately, this is just before it goes into the new moon. It is approximately in a 45-degree angle to Mars and then to Uranus, in quite quick succession, because the moon moves pretty fast, pretty rapidly. So there is a feeling of bristling emotion. Whatever is going on before this new moon is a precursor to what might be coming up. So, for instance, really check out how you're feeling on the 5th of July, because what is coming up in your unconscious mind, and of course the moon brings up our unconscious mind energy, but what is coming up at that time is absolutely feeding into what's going on for us on the 15th of July, when these two are in a conjunction. So it's worth bearing that in mind for sure. So this frustration, like the semi-squares are actually really quite dynamic, and they create a series of changes. They create a frustration, but it's a frustration that usually you can do something about. It's not it's not something that feels really interminable. So the moon in a square to Mars is showing a frustration. Maybe things are taking too long. Maybe you need a bit more patience, a little bit more determination. Maybe it just feels like if you don't get it right first time, you're losing your temper. So tempers are flaring around this time. And of course, the moon in a semi-square to Uranus, again, Uranus is shocking. It's potentially shocking energy. So again, you might find that this 45-degree energy between the moon and Uranus is creating these snap decisions, these snap insights, these snap awarenesses, these snap ideas that just come into your mind really, really quickly. And you might say things or think things before really taking the time to think them through. And there's nothing wrong with that, because actually I think what is going on instinctively is worth listening to. It's worth paying attention to. Like, it's really worth paying attention to what's going on, but you don't want it to be the ruler of you necessarily. So pay attention to it, acknowledge it, find out what it's there to indicate. Like, if you're making a snap judgment about something, do you have a belief that's underneath that, or a fear that's playing into that? So, acknowledge it, but don't necessarily be flaring up and, following the impulse to take some kind of drastic snap, slightly aggressive and snappy action. So I just think any kind of way we can be observant and in the moment, and yet also giving ourselves the space to make another decision, or giving ourselves the space to reflect, is really important. And so as the moon comes into the new moon position, as the moon joins the sun in the sign of Cancer, things start to slow down. If you think the new moon is that moment where the moon appears to disappear, it appears to disappear. It is no longer shining. Some people call it the dark moon. It is not shining in the sky. It is a point of starting. It's a commencement. It is the seed that is germinating. It's the idea that it is a completely new point from which something new can grow from. So I think, as we get to the moment of the new moon, you could have a really good clearing of something. This is a moment to clear and create a new possibility for yourself. Now, the sign of Cancer is actually ruled by the moon. So this is a very, very strong new moon. And the moon represents our psyche, our intuition, our instincts, our changing instincts, the fact that it is, we are evolving, we are changing. If you think the moon goes through a massive transformation every single month, from disappearing to being completely full, and then coming back to that disappearing position, there is a complete cycle in my friend calls it a moonth, a moon month, which is slightly shorter than our calendar months. But in the moonth, the moon makes a full transition it starts from nothing, goes big, and then comes back down, like the in-breath and the out-breath, like the tides coming in and then rolling out. Everything is always moving. It's either getting bigger or getting smaller. And it's like this concertina, always happening. And so we are part of this natural flow of life. And this is the start of a new sound, a new vibration. If we're using an accordion as some kind of marker, you know, this is, you're creating a new sound, a new vibration, a new wave, a new pulse of energy. Now, Cancer is the eternal mother, the idea of birthing, the idea of motherhood, nurturing. It's also the vibration of protection. So if you think of the crab, it has a hard shell, but it's really soft inside. And even though it's got this hard shell and it's got these great pincers and it can really defend itself, the crab still prefers, and I know this because I go to the ocean quite a bit with small children who love to find crabs and chase them. You know, we see a crab and we're interested, and it's got this artillery. It can attack you if it wants to, but it still chooses to bury itself in the sand. So, you know, the crab has got defensive abilities, and yet it still prefers to disappear before it uses its pincers. But boy, if you follow it when it's gone off on its own to retreat, it will come out and go for you. So it's worth bearing that in mind. It's the ultimate in sensitivity, hypersensitivity. So you may well be feeling hypersensitive around this time. It is all of the potential of emotions. Like if you've ever, I grew up with a Cancerian best friend. I'm now married to a Cancerian husband. I've had a lot of Cancerian types in my life, and they feel things very, very deeply. And things can blow up and almost get blown out of proportion because the energies are so great. They are completely felt. And so I do think that this new moon in Cancer could be this wellspring of emotion, this wellspring of feelings, and intuition, but not necessarily knowing where it needs to go. And for this reason, I really recommend that we all find a cave or similar. Now, you know, if you live by caves, that could be good, but you know, you might just want to find a womb-like experience, you know, this opportunity to retreat, this opportunity to self-nurture, this opportunity to almost climb back in some kind of cosmic vagina. Sorry if that grosses people out, but it's that feeling of safety, that feeling of being protected, that feeling of silence, that feeling that you have your own space and you've got this moment to really listen to all these emotions that are going on, hear them all, hear every little disassociated side of you that is having an emotion, having a reaction, and listen to it. And like a mom, say, it's okay, you've got this, or a dad, sorry, to be able to say, you've got this, you know, to hear yourself thinking these things, hear yourself having these beliefs, and just nurturing yourself through the whole situation, like giving yourself the space and the nourishment to love yourself back into wholeness. You know, the sign of Cancer is really about being in this place of wholeness, you know, to be able to feel everything and to be okay with that. And I just think it's very, very difficult to be able to do that whilst being in this multisensory and arguably overstimulating world with our lives that are crammed full to the brim, full of experiences. Often we don't have the time to do all of it, all the resources. So we are in this, like, we're living these lives of, and hopefully you don't, I mean, hopefully you don't have that programming and you've done something about it. But, you know, I'm going to put my hand up and say, I do perceive lack in my life. And I have a great life. I really do have a great life. But I do sometimes perceive lack. I have these moments of ingratitude. I have these moments where I think I don't have enough time. I don't have enough money. I don't have enough strength in my body to be able to do all these different things. I can't cope. I'm overwhelmed, you know, and I'm sure, you know, I'm sure you have those moments too, right? You know, where it all feels like just too much. And so this is a clearing point. Use this new moon to clear the way. Use this as a cosmic break state. I know when I was learning NLP, we spoke about having a break state, you know, in between, like, you know, like if you come home from work and you get home, sometimes you need 5 minutes just to adjust your state and your level of awareness to the new situation that you're going into. A bit like if a kid is thrown into a party, often they're like, "Ooh, what's going on?" And then all of a sudden they kind of melt into it. So this new moon is a break state. It's an emotional break state where you can break the state you've just been in, which quite possibly is going to be quite frustrated about things, given, these two semi-squares to Mars and Uranus. And it's giving you that peace to collect your thoughts, notice what's coming up, be aware of it, and then make a calm decision. So I really advise whatever you can do to find that sacred space in yourself. If you've got an altar, if you've got a room, if you meditate, if you do yoga, if you go for a jog, whatever, create that space for you. That's the best gift you can give yourself. And in terms of intentions, you might decide to dedicate this month for your unraveling, for your unburdening of issues, for your letting go of all those things you're attached to. They're actually helping you to feel ungrateful. Because actually, if you go back to the whole motherhood analogy and the idea of the sort of Cancerian sort of idea, and like the moon, it is like a seed. It's like a conception point. It goes to the full moon, like the full pregnant belly before a baby or an idea, like it gets too much and it has to be released. And it's like a continuous generosity, that generosity to keep giving. And I think this new moon in Cancer is reminding us that even though it doesn't appear that we live in this universe or this place that is full of possibility and opportunity and full to the brim of things, and that maybe we have a benevolent, if you believe in a creator, that is, that or the universe or source energy, if you believe that there is a benevolent creator behind everything, then this is a moment to be full of gratitude and to realize that actually, the more calm you are, the more aligned you are to believing everything is good, the more it can come in, the more you can be receptive to it. And Cancerians are so receptive. So if anything, this is about retuning from the receptivity to lack. And you might want to think about how you connect into, like, disconnect from a lack train of thought and reconnect to gratitude chain of thought, or train of thought even. So that's just a suggestion, a serving suggestion maybe. After this conjunction, Venus goes into a square with Chiron. Now Venus, is already in a square to Chiron at that time. And I actually do talk about this as one of the big conjunctions of week one. This is something where we realize we have hurts or vulnerabilities, and then our Venus is really wanting us to get over our vulnerabilities. It's creating a bit of an impulse, a frustration to, okay, I recognize I'm vulnerable, and yet I also am a loving, creative, flowing person. And it's the tension between the two. How do you sidestep that? What I would say is, after that, the next most notable conjunction or aspect, I think, is the moon actually does connect in with Venus. So it's like, the way I see it is the moon is making a choice just because of the cycles of the planets. But to me, it appears that the moon straight after is going towards the generosity of Venus, the idea of generosity, flow, benevolence. She's a benefic planet. She's seen as being beneficial, helpful, loving, kind, compassionate, forgiving. And so that's another thing, probably the last point that I want to make. Forgiveness is really important because and again, I say this recognizing that I need to do a lot myself on this. We're all human, having this experience. And I realize that anyone that I'm not forgiving, I have a judgment of. And anyone that I'm having a judgment of it's indicating some kind of separation between me and that person, or I'm separating myself. The thing that I'm judging, I'm separating from. I'm seeing myself as separate from the thing I don't like. And I love the work of Chuck Spezzano, who says that all problems of consciousness, and I might be paraphrasing a bit here, not word for word, but every issue or trauma that we have as humans is caused because of a separation. It has separation at the core, at the root of the issue. So anything that you're judging, that you're not being forgiving of, that you feel like you can't forgive, you're in separation to it. You can't join with it, you know. And so this whole idea, I think, of Venus and the moon coming together, i.e. the moon moving to Venus. The moon is your instincts, your behaviors, your insight, your intuition coming in to connect with Venus, who is the planet of connection. I really see that we can join, we can notice what we're judging, notice what we feel uncomfortable about, and join it. Say, and you can do this internally to yourself, or etherically. You might even do it face to face with somebody, but you might say, look, I realize I've been a jerk, or I've had this judgment, or I just want to know more about what's going on for you. I think the more we can understand every single emotion right now, seeing as, you know, the new moon in Cancer is so full of emotions, ideas, and imprints, like psychic energy, the more we can see it, recognize what we're judging, the more we have as an opportunity to join with it and come together. And in that, I think we can feel the gratitude. We start to vibrate with that gratitude, that openness, that gift of life, that gift of feeling love, and the sense of release. So they're my thoughts about the new moon in Cancer. Now, in a sec, I'm going to look at the asteroids and dwarf planets and this, that, and the other that feature in with the coding here. But before that, I just want to say thank you. On the note of gratitude, I just want to thank everybody who gets involved to support this channel in all the different multitudes of ways that they do that, whether they have subscribed or joined on YouTube, whether they give me a one-off donation or a regular donation on ko-fi.com. My address is below, by the way. Or just your continuous encouragement. You know, it's really, really lovely. I love the comments. Sorry if it takes a while to respond to them, but everything that I get, you know, whether it's a share or a like or a comment, it really raises my vibration. And I really thank everyone who is co-collaborating with me in this project. I couldn't do it without you. It really is a collaboration. So thank you. So the new moon in Cancer then with asteroids. Where can we go with this? So there were, I often have lots, but actually what I've got here is just a few. So the obvious one is Ceres. Now, Ceres was actually on the screen anyway, because I always have Ceres in my selection on astro.com. She looks like a question mark with a line through it. I've brought her up in a different way here, so you can actually see the name Ceres on the screen. Ceres is the goddess of nurturing and the goddess of the harvest. You know, she is Mother Nature. You know, she is absolutely managing all the cycles of life. You know, she is the flow of it all. And if you think of like the sort of mum energy, and again, I'm not trying to sort of exclude an active father or bring up some kind of gender debate here, but the idea of there being somebody who is a provider at home, who kind of manages all the things, who is the hub, the center of it, that takes all that incoming information with all the incoming members of a family or a community or nature. Like, you know, what is the organizing principle, the organizing principle that seems to nurture and support every little person within a family or community or garden or whatever. It's like the energy of nurturance and seeing everything has a place and helping everything come up at just the right time. It's the balance. So I really see that Ceres has this ability to recognize all the cycles that are going on right now and have something to do with the balance of how everything is expressed, like who gets the most amount of sunlight right now, who gets the water, who gets this, who gets that. But Ceres is really managing this. So like if you've got a really strong Ceres in your chart, you could be a very sort of powerful, I mean, I think that works in business as well. I imagine a really effective CEO would have a really good Ceres going on there. Now they also, you know, Ceres also manages the grief cycle. If you think you've got spring and summer, you know, where everything is getting big and bountiful and beautiful from its new starts right the way up to its beautiful flourishing. And then you come into autumn and winter where everything starts to, you know, come off its peak and it starts to dry and it starts to decompose, and then it goes back to the earth where it disappears, getting ready for the new seasons. So there is this, again, the continuous upcycle and the recycle going on, which is very much like the new moon and full moon. Again, it's a motherhood energy. So she shows up in your chart and often describes how you might want to parent, how you might want to be a mother or a father, or the symbol of a mother or father within your community, within your family. You know, it's not something exclusive to being actually a parent. It's a quality, a way of being. You're either quite nurturing or really not nurturing. You know, it's quite easy. It's also natural, you know, so there's this real feeling of nature sort of tied into it. Now, in this particular chart, Ceres is exactly opposite, and she's currently going through the sign of Capricorn. By the way, Ceres is a dwarf planet, not strictly an asteroid, and that's her number. So if you wanted to put Ceres into your chart, she's asteroid number 1 on astro.com. But she's in the sign of Capricorn, which is really representing the winter. It's representing the grief cycle of Ceres. It's representing the more businesslike, possibly more cutting side of parenting, maybe the tough love side of nurturing. She's not really in a sort of fecund and fertile position there. You know, she is really quite possibly austere. You know, she might be kind of hard and cold and a little bit rigid at this moment in time. Now, if you think about it, Capricorn is ruled by Saturn, and Saturn is like the scythe. Saturn is also known as Kronos. Funnily enough, there are some things in Uranian astrology called Uranian points, and Uranian point Kronos is really tied into the energy of Saturn, and so Kronos is also doing something at the time of this new moon. Funnily enough, Kronos is actually in a conjunction with the new moon in Cancer, and Ceres, which is arguably more Cancerian and more motherly, is in the sign of Capricorn. Isn't that interesting? It feels like the big parents out there right now are role reversed. So you could say that the archetypes of kindness, the archetypes of absolute kindness and trust, the people you might trust in, are possibly more austere and judgmental and authoritarian, more into rulership and governance than usual. And you might also say that those energies of, you know, sort of exploring the Capricorn, you know, the high business energy, the let's invest and make loads of money and not really care so much about what's going on with people, is right now in a sort of experiencing a lot more care. So in many respects, it feels like there are some really big role reversals going on, where you might find that the mother and the father figure are acting very differently. They're mirroring back their opposing styles, or they're practicing other styles. There is a balancing. If you were to look at this as the role of mum and dad, or male and female, it appears that the female is more masculine and the male is more feminine. So I don't know how that relates to your own journey right now. But what I would say is be prepared for the mirror image. You know, what are you projecting onto other people, and how much of that is actually what's within you that you really can't accept about yourself? There's also the ideas, if you think that Cancer is the 4th sign of the zodiac and Capricorn is the 10th sign of the zodiac, and the 4th and the 10th are really important numbers. The 4th is about the home and what's private. The 10th is about what's public and out of the home. So the 4th is the past. The 10th is the future and how you stand in the world, how you make terms with the world, how you command the world. You know, the 4th is actually how the world protects you. So again, there's the big issues of how protected do you want to be, and how ready are you to take on the world? Do you need protection? Lots of big things going on. So that's something that I observe. The next asteroid or thing that I notice is Urania. She's asteroid number 30. If you go to www.astro.com, she's goddess of astrology, which I love. So I always use her in anything to do with being an astrologer or noticing patterns. She's also she's got a really gifted knowledge of astronomy and cosmology. So she sees everything at a micro and macro level. She's also a goddess that has a really strong dose of prophecy. She understands cosmic languages like the language of astrology, the language of symbols, the language of light, any religious languages. She understands mathematical languages, coding, for instance. And she's also uplifting. She really is a light bringer. She really is wanting to bring as much light to the situation. She's wanting to help people rise up. And it's the idea of self-knowledge, the idea of, knowledge about yourself and how you fit into the world at large. That is what is uplifting. It's like recognizing your place, maybe taking your place in this life. Obviously we're all here. You're here, I'm here. And maybe we don't always ask ourselves why we are here, but it's very easy to just think you're here and then there's the world out here and you're not connected. I think Urania is giving us the opportunity to see where the uniqueness of us slots right into the overall scheme of things, that actually everything would fall apart if you weren't here. You're here until you're not meant to be here. She observes these patterns beautifully. Now, she is in the sign of Libra, which is about balance, interestingly. The idea of the balance, the diplomacy, the midpoint. She is at the midpoint of Ceres in Capricorn and Kronos in Cancer. So she's at the midpoint of the intersection between home and away, mom and dad, support through kindness versus support through tough love. It's the come here versus come on, pull your socks up energy. So I think what she's saying here is all of that belongs here. None of it should be excluded. Any scheme or any aspect of life that is trying to cancel out another way of being is going against the laws of nature. There is a need for everything that is here to be here, but what's needed is the balance, and so she is here to help us see where things are unbalanced. So I think this is really quite interesting. And if you've got something around these points, you might choose to pay attention. I know people born around the years that say 73 to say 76, you're going to have Pluto here in this area. I've got my Pluto at 9 degrees. I'm born at the end of 74. So, Urania is over your Pluto right now. It's very close. And the South Node is there as well, really reminding you of the light that you might have had when you came in. How did you understand who you were? How did you fit in then? And maybe what's not working for you right now? Look at your outer planets. Have you got any outer planets on these points? So finally, Kronos then, a Uranian point. It represents high up authority, rulership, governance, responsibility, protectionism, especially in the sign of Cancer, because Cancer has its own protection featured in it. So this is a highly, highly protective new moon where you might be deciding how you can best protect yourself in a world that doesn't always make sense, in a world that most likely is deeply triggering at times, where we feel like our emotions flare up and then calm down. So if I was to put all of this together, from part 1 to part 2, I would say absolutely at this time, it's a great time to come inwards and to notice what we're getting emotional about. And then using these asteroids, I would also say, where do we feel the schism? Where are we veering towards one side over the other, or one way of being over the other? How can we bring that back into a balance? Right now, this is offering us a more balanced approach to life. It's showing us that when things are in opposition, there is no peace. It's showing us that as we can come into a joining, come into a connection, we can start to understand each other. And from that comes the real power. And that is where we become uplifted. And it's almost like we need to be speaking not our own languages, but the cosmic language. I wonder what it would be like if we all could feel the energy of each other. Like, we all have our appearance, we all have the words that we use. And yet, what if we could actually feel into the vibration of each other? And that was everything that you needed to know about anyone at any time, that we could, just by being with somebody, understand the language of who they are, like understand the vibration, the frequency of them. If we could see the true beauty of who each other is, we wouldn't need all these languages and determinating the description words, because we would just feel the humanity of each other. We would feel the grace of each other. And we might be a lot happier. Who knows? Anyway, there were just some of my thoughts about the new moon. I hope they were useful. It's funny because as I look at a chart, I start to blend into the energy of it. As I was getting ready to record this, I started to feel a bit calmer, a bit more emotional. Funny, isn't it, that what I'm noticing with my channel right now is the videos I'm preparing for, I start to experience these like little mini crises, these little moments of these little spikes of emotion, maybe a day or two before I start to record something. And it's nearly always got something to do with the chart that I'm about to look at and the chart that I'm meant to talk about. So I really feel like I'm co-creating, I'm looking at these charts ahead of time and thinking, oh, I wonder what needs to come up. And then boom, I start to generate stuff from my own weird and wonderful unconscious mind. And maybe that's what's going on for you right now as well. So who knows? I'm pretty sure that what we do know about this way of life really falls short from the true majesty and magnificence of what actually is going on. Who knows? It's a mystery to me. And anyway, enjoy your continued experience of this mystery of life. I hope you're well. And if I can be of any help, then just get in touch. You know where I am. Lots of love. Bye for now.